So at Mothers to Mothers, we offer support to women and birthing people in Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloss, from pregnancy all the way up to when youngest child goes to school. It really doesn't matter what you're going through as a parent, as a mother, as a family. You can come to us and meet a volunteer who isn't going to judge, who understands how difficult things can be as a parent.
Here at the Bristol Bike Project, we take in bikes that are unwanted from the local community. We refurbish them and we give them back out into the community to people who need them. Volunteers here are essential to that process because they're the ones who are refurbishing the bikes and giving them out. We also have volunteers that help us maintain the building, that do artwork for us, come up with social media campaigns and help promote the project.
So volunteers at St Peter's Hospice do a variety of roles. We're actually in the garden where we have a lot of volunteers who support our head gardener in doing all the planting, all the maintenance. So the hospice garden is an amazing asset to the hospice and the experience that patients have here. It's very grounding, being around nature, especially because we're in quite, a big city, especially with difficult conversations. It's easier to have those in the garden, and altogether we have about 1,500 volunteers supporting us.
Bristol After Stroke has over 60 volunteers, and they will be people who are stroke affected themselves, or they have a real understanding of stroke through working or through friends and family. Having a stroke really turns your life upside down. It can impact everything that happens in your life, and so being part of a community is so important. Somebody who's stroke affected has sort of gone through a full journey. They've come in as a client, and then bit by bit they take on volunteering opportunities, and it was so valuable that this person who received the service has gone on to become a peer mentor.
I mean, certainly as a volunteer myself, when I was working on the phones, to be able to develop that sort of regular relationship with somebody and to build that understanding and knowledge, it's good for you actually as a volunteer.
For volunteers, a lot of them come to kind of gain mechanical skills, so through volunteering they get to learn for free, but it also means they have a lot more opportunity to practice what they've learned, embed in that knowledge.
Even the expertise that the gardeners have, not just the head gardener but the volunteers as well, to come and bring that to the garden, all the knowledge, and to share that with people, because that's what the garden represents, right?
The group activities that we do give them purpose, make them feel connected, and that's really important, and we just couldn't do what we do without volunteers.
Recruiting volunteers, it's getting more difficult. We've got more of the sandwich generation happening a bit now, which is basically they're having to support the generation above them and the generation below them. They're having to take on roles of childcare often, helping parents out, and it's basically changing our demographic, and it's meaning we don't get as much commitment as we used to.
People across Bristol seem to be really struggling a lot more since the pandemic and with the cost of living crisis. In the St Paul's and Eastern area that St Paul's Advice Centre works with, there are particular struggles that people are facing around not having enough income, around accessing the right benefits, around accumulating debts due to not being able to cover the basics of life. We're always in need of volunteers at St Paul's Advice Centre, because volunteers really help us with increasing the capacity of what it is that we're able to do. There's a lot of work that can be done before someone works with a specialist advisor.
Transpride Bristol is an organisation that supports people who are trans, non-binary, intersex and gender non-conforming. We are entirely volunteer-led, run and exist. There are several barriers to consider in whether people can volunteer. So that comes down to whether they have any time, whether they've got childcare, whether they are trying to work 5 part-time jobs because it's not affordable to be here. So if we didn't have volunteers, we would lose so much of what Bristol is. We have such a wonderful, vibrant, diverse community here, and a lot of that is built on the plethora of volunteering opportunities that we have across the city.
So if we didn't have volunteers at the bike project, the project basically couldn't exist. The work that goes into stripping a bike down and putting it back together again, it's quite labour intensive. If we paid people to do that, there's no way that we could raise the funds to pay those people and still be able to give bikes out for free.
We at Voscur are the support agency for the local voluntary, community, charity and social enterprise sector in Bristol. Rates of volunteering are starting to recover post-pandemic, but things are still challenging and we still have a cost of living crisis that's affecting things. So for volunteer managers at the moment, things can still feel quite tough. The needs of people in the community are greater than ever. Because the volunteer manager role is so varied, that's quite a lot for one individual person to juggle. So we've brought volunteer managers together in lots of different ways. For example, that might be things like the Volunteer Organisers Forum. It could be coming along to peer learning sessions, roundtable discussions, and they're all opportunities for volunteer managers to connect with other people doing a similar role.
Mothers for Mothers has been lucky enough to work with Voscur, who've been able to provide us with a space to meet with fellow organisations, fellow charities who are doing, if not the same thing as us, similar things, who are struggling perhaps with the same challenges that we find ourselves faced with.
It's amazing how many people there are actually who either their whole job is volunteer management or it's part of their job, and it's so useful to come together with other people.
Sometimes it can be quite isolating doing this job, and to have the opportunity to meet people who are doing the same thing is invaluable.
Having the ability to share our lived experience, our professional knowledge, and to ask questions on the bits we're getting stuck on.
Before I came to reflective practice with Voscur, there is an element of isolation to the work that you do when you're talking to your fellow coordinators, or recognising your challenges and struggles in those other people. You may be doing the same things, but you know you're not alone.
Coming together with other people who manage and coordinate volunteers is almost confirmation that maybe I'm doing it right.
So volunteer managers were telling us that they wanted support with specific things around how to make sure volunteering is inclusive. So we had roundtables discussing things like equity, diversity and inclusion.
I felt that many people in that room were doing the role they were doing in isolation. Suddenly they were feeling like there was community and there was support. And we created this really strong bond between everybody and how we are going to find ways to bring down those barriers and support each other in growing in our knowledge.
It just reminds me every time I go that I can use the contacts that I make to help my work.
We've been working with lots of different volunteer managers to co-produce resources so that when people are newer to their role, there's something that they can go and find online that's going to help them to hit the ground running.
The online group has been very instrumental in sharing useful resources and information that I've been able to use within my own organisation. We're actually developing a training for retail store managers about how to manage volunteers, and we had a useful university study that was shared in the group.
And it's really been a powerful thing to work with all of those organisations and know that we've got Voscur supporting us to do that all the way along.
Things like the Volunteer Organisers Forum give people a chance to kind of step away from their desks, take a minute, hear from their peers and know that they're part of something bigger, to think about how we can work together, save time, be more strategic and ultimately feel supported.